At 2:47 a.m., four B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, identified as Petro 4-1 to 4-4, entered Iranian airspace from three different directions. Their mission was to destroy ballistic missile depots hidden in deep caves. The Iranians believed these facilities were virtually invulnerable, unaware that they were about to face a devastating attack. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Petro 4-1 and 4-4 were approaching to within approximately 145 kilometers of the Tabriz North Missile Base. The target was a highly protected complex with 8 cave entrances and 6 vertical shafts that allowed missiles to be launched directly from the underground facilities. To accurately hit these points, the crews needed to precisely calculate course, speed, timing, and wind conditions before releasing the bombs. During these calculations, an alert arose. 2 MiG-29s had taken off from Tabriz Air Base, just 24 kilometers from the complex. The B-2 pilots remained radio silent, as any transmission could be detected. The problem was serious. Although almost invisible to radar, the B-2 could be detected by the MiG-29's IRST infrared sensor, which tracks heat. If the fighters approached within 48 kilometers, they could pick up the thermal signature of the bomber's engines. To avoid this risk, 2 F-22 Viper, Viper 1 and Viper 2 advanced to intercept. The Viper's APG-77 Radar 1 detected and locked onto the 2 MiG-29s at about 96 kilometers, preparing to eliminate the threat before the bombers were discovered. At that distance, the Iranians see absolutely nothing on their Zuk-ME radars, which were supplied by Russia the previous year precisely for this type of situation. Inside Petro 4-1 and 4-4, the mission commanders watch on the tactical display as the escort moves away. 2 triangles pulling northeast, 2 red triangles rising southeast. A geometry they cannot control. What they can control is the bombing run. And now the schedule indicates 113 kilometers to the clearance point. 12 minutes. They need those MiGs to disappear before they get there. Because open bomb bay doors multiply the B-2's radar cross-section by a factor of 100. At about 19 kilometers from the target, any Iranian radar, airborne or ground-based, that happens to be pointed in the right direction will receive an early Christmas present. The commanders continue working. Coordinates of the openings confirmed. Tunnel entry sequence locked. They can't afford to look up. Outside, the F-22s are closing the geometry. About 80 kilometers away, Viper 1. He deliberately turns the radar on in active mode. He wants the MiGs to know that someone is there. The radar warning receivers light up in both Iranian cockpits. 2 distinct lock-ons. The leader makes the smart choice. He tilts sharply to the left and descends, pulling towards the mountain ridge, where the terrain confuses the radar image. The wingman follows him. They are not fleeing. The MiG-29s begin maneuvering through the valleys northwest of Tabriz, using the terrain to break radar lock-on and periodically reappear in the flight corridor. This is the worst-case scenario for the mission. They are neither fleeing nor exposing themselves in open combat, but playing a dangerous, time-consuming game of cat and mouse, something Petro 4-1 doesn't have. With 9 minutes to go before the bombs are due to be released, mission commanders continue preparing the attack while enemy contacts appear and disappear on the sensors. Viper first, the FD-22 detects one of the MiG-29s as it activates its afterburner while exiting a valley. The F-22 then launches an AMRAAM, which accelerates to Mach 4 with the target locked on at approximately 28 kilometers. But the MiG pilot reacts immediately. He flips the aircraft upside down and dives into a canyon. The valley walls interfere with the missile's radar, which loses its target and ends up hitting the mountain. The MiGs aren't outperforming the F-22s. They're using the terrain to their advantage. They briefly appear above the ridges and disappear before a missile can travel the necessary distance. It's a deadly game of mole hitting, with fighters flying at Mach 1.5 and missiles costing millions of dollars. Meanwhile, with 6 minutes to go before the attack, Petro 4-1 and 4-4 remain firmly on course. The autopilot maintains heading and altitude with absolute precision, while the crew simultaneously monitors 3 fronts: the preparation of the bombs, the F-22s hunting in the mountains, and the AWACS tracking the second MiG in the valleys. Shortly after, Viper 1 finally locates the MiG leader. He circled south and is now returning at low altitude towards Tabriz, still hidden by the terrain and heading in an uncertain direction. One of the MiG-29s may be returning to base or attempting a new approach through the flight corridor. However, flying below the mountains, it constantly disappears from Viper's radar. 1. Preventing a shot from being fired. With 4 minutes to go before the attack, the commander initiates the final sequence. In 90 seconds, the bomb bay doors of the B-2s would open, a critical moment, as this greatly increases the aircraft's radar signature. At this point, the MiG-29s continue to hide among the valleys, difficult to locate and too fast to be ignored. With only 2 minutes remaining, the commander decides to proceed. The enemy fighters are more than 48 kilometers away, and at that distance, and with the terrain interfering, detection by infrared sensor is considered unlikely, though not impossible. At 2:59 a.m., the doors open and the rotary launchers position the GBU-31 bombs. Even with 2 MiG-29s still searching the mountains, they never manage to locate the bombers. For 10 critical seconds, the B-2s are vulnerable, and then the bombs are released. Each bomb, weighing about 900 kilograms, continuously adjusts its fins as it descends, guided by GPS. They hit tunnel entrances and launch hatches scattered across nearly 800 meters of the mountain. The first explosions destroy and bury the entrances with tons of rock, while others penetrate the structures and detonate inside the galleries, collapsing the launch shafts. With the complex neutralized, Petro 4-1 and 4-4 turned west. They still had 14 hours of flight time left before the return trip. Behind them, the mountain continued to crumble, forever sealing the missile caverns. And somewhere in the valleys below, among the wreckage, 2 MiG-29 pilots continue circling over a target that no longer exists. About 960 kilometers to the south, Petro 4-2 has just entered a situation that stealth alone cannot resolve. Petro 4-2 is 8 minutes from liberation when 2 problems arise simultaneously. The first attempts to destroy the crew. The second attempts to help. After Israel dismantled the S-300 batteries supplied by Russia to Iran last year, Iranian engineers built a domestic replacement under sanctions. A mobile phased scan, electronically scanned array radar with an engagement range of approximately 150 kilometers. The Israel Defense Forces would later designate it as the SA-65, not as capable as the S-300, but sufficient to ruin a B-2 cruise night. This battery has been hidden in the mountains south of Isfahan for 3 hours, waiting for a target worth the exposure. At 3:11 a.m., its radar locks onto Petro 4-2. The battery commander has already made his decision. He will fire. The Growler escorting Petro 4-2 picks up the emission immediately. The next generation ALQ-249 jammer floods the tracking frequency with enough radiated power to turn the SA-65 screen into electronic noise. An F-35 that had been passively cataloging that same emission source for 90 minutes sends the coordinates via Link 16 to a Growler orbiting about 64 kilometers to the west. The Growler dives into the attack. An AGM-88 Harm leaves the pylon. Its integrated ramjet engine accelerates. Mach 4 and increasing. 60 seconds. That's how much time the SA-65 battery still has left. But 60 seconds is also the time it takes for a missile to achieve a firing solution against a target at the altitude of a Petro 4-2. The race has begun. Harm versus Sam. And the B-2 is the finish line for both. 7 minutes until clearance. The mission commander is working with 16 impact points distributed across 2 cave complexes southwest and northwest of Isfahan. 3 bombs per tunnel entrance. The same math as Tabriz, but without the openings in the ceiling. It should be simpler. Should is a relative term in this context. It is at this moment that the voice of the CAOC controller cuts the frequency with a tone that should not exist in a routine coordination call. Petro 4-2, stand by. Airspace conflict. Corridor 2. Multiple friendly aircraft crossing the coordination line. The corridor to Isfahan had been choreographed down to the second. Each aircraft in a sector. Each sector separated by altitude and geography. Transporter. Mobile launchers, erector launcher. Emerged from a cave entrance approximately 29 kilometers east of Isfahan. Shahab-3 variants heading to dispersal positions. An Israeli formation of F-35 Adir fighters detected the convoy in infrared. 4 missiles that could have been aimed at Israeli cities within an hour. The leader of the Israeli formation did not request permission. He turned east, crossing the coordination line with his wingman, both jets accelerating towards the convoy carrying GBU-39 small bombs. Diameter bomb on the tracks. The TLs were on the move. Waiting for authorization would mean losing them in the mountain canyons. Say what you will about coalition coordination. When someone puts Shahab-3s pointed at Tel Aviv, the Israelis don't form a committee. They form an attack package. Now the mission commander inside Petro 4-2 must conduct a bombing run while 2 different crises unfold outside the aircraft. To the south, the AGM-88 is 40 seconds from impact. But the SA-65 is still tracking. Its operators haven't turned off the radar. Either they don't know the harm is coming, or they've decided that trying to shoot down a B-2 is worth the risk of ending up with their faces plastered on a T-shirt. An EA-18G Growler continues to saturate the enemy radar frequency with electronic jamming, attempting to disrupt the SA-65 system's firing solution. This buys a few precious seconds, but it's not a guarantee. If the radar manages to get a sufficiently clean track before the arrival of the HARM anti-radar missile, a surface-to-air missile could be launched against the Petro 4-2. At the same time, 2 Israeli F-35I Adir stealth fighters enter the same air corridor as the B-2. Since all are stealth aircraft, they are virtually undetectable by radar, creating a dangerous situation of 3 invisible planes converging on the same point in the sky. The B-2 flies at approximately 12,800 meters, while the F-35s climb from 7,600 meters, rapidly reducing the vertical separation. With 5 minutes to go before the bombs were due to be dropped, the command center in Al Udeid resolves the air conflict by shifting the B-2's strike point about 5 kilometers to the north. This requires reprogramming the GPS coordinates of 16 bombs, while the aircraft continues to advance at nearly 13 kilometers per minute. The commander quickly updates the targets in the targeting system. Meanwhile, the F-35 leader reports that the harm will hit enemy radar in about 20 seconds, and that the interference is still keeping the system below the launch threshold. Although nobody wants to rely solely on that. 3 minutes before the main attack, the F-35s initiate their own action. One dives and drops a GBU-39 bomb against a Shahab-3 missile launcher truck. The GPS-guided bomb destroys the vehicle, rupturing the fuel tank and causing a large secondary explosion that temporarily blinds the infrared sensors. Almost simultaneously, south of Isfahan, the AGM-88G HARM reaches its target. Even though the SA-65 operator had switched off the radar a few seconds earlier, The missile continued its trajectory because its electronic memory retained the emitter's last position. Even with the radar off, GPS and inertial navigation guide the warhead precisely to the point where the antenna was transmitting 30 seconds earlier. The warhead detonates. A year of Iranian engineering under sanctions turns into a field of debris in the mountains. A multi-billion-dollar air defense program countered by a missile that the U.S. Navy buys the way most people buy printer paper. 2 minutes to release. The mission commander has already reprogrammed 12 of the 16 impact points. His fingers haven't stopped moving since the chaos began. The Israeli wing destroys the second TL. The 2 remaining trucks disperse along different mountain passes. They will be someone else's problem within an hour. Bothadil turn south and cross the coordination line again. Petro 4-2, Corridor 2 open. Attack authorized, 60 seconds. The mission commander completes the last 4 impact points. He confirms the sequence, all 16 now pointing to adjusted coordinates. At 3:17 a.m., the bomb bay doors open. 16 GBU-31s fall toward 2 cave complexes southwest and northwest of Isfahan. The mountain does what mountains do when someone breaches its doors with penetrating warheads. It collapses inward. It seals itself. 3 bombs per entrance, rock and reinforced concrete crumbling to bury everything inside. Petro 4-2 turns towards the base. About 480 kilometers to the southeast, Petro 4-3 approaches a target that the other 2 crews did not have to deal with. A cave complex that is not quiet in the dark. This one is firing. At 3:22 a.m. local time, the Petro 4-3 crew can hear the war unfolding on the radio. The AWACS controller's voice has a tension that wasn't there 20 minutes earlier. Sharp. Rapid. The pace of someone following events they'd rather not be seeing. About 480 kilometers to the southeast, inside a cave complex near Korgu, Iranian missile teams were feeding the launch rails as fast as the automatic loaders could operate. What they didn't know was that a mission commander, at about 12,800 meters altitude, was timing them. Alerts indicate multiple ballistic missile launches originating from a cave complex in the mountains near Korgu, identified as Target Kilo 7, precisely the target of Petro 4-3. The missiles are being fired towards coalition bases in the Gulf, such as Al-Udeid, Ali al-Salem, and Al-Dafra, where Patriot and THAAD systems are already operating at their limit, trying to intercept them. Every minute the installation remains active means another missile crossing the Gulf. Observing the AWACS data, the commander notices a pattern. About 4 minutes between launches. Since the bomber won't reach the first cycle, he decides to use the Iranian firing rate itself to synchronize the attack. The strategy changes. First, destroy the launch openings in the ceiling, precisely in the interval between one shot and the next, when the compartments are empty. The tunnel entrances would be attacked last. At 3:31 a.m., AWACS confirms another Korgu launch, and the countdown begins. When the B-2 reaches the release point, the bomb bay doors open and the 16 GBU-31s are prepared. The first pair of bombs hits opening 1 approximately 90 seconds after the last launch, just when the compartment is empty. The BLU-109 penetrating warheads pierce the ceiling and detonate inside the chamber, destroying the loading system and disabling the launch rail. The second pair repeats the same effect at opening 2 Adfuru, eliminating another firing point. The remaining 12 bombs hit the tunnel entrances, east, west, and 2 service entrances in groups of 3. Each impact, weighing approximately 900 kilograms, caused massive collapses, completely sealing the caverns with rock and concrete. Minutes later, the AWACS operator observes the sensors and notices something unusual. No new launches are appearing on heading 173. The complex that had been firing missiles just minutes before simply ceased to exist. Corgu remains silent. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment and see you next time.